Hello, everyone. Welcome to a brand new live stream. I'm trying to do something a little bit different today, and looking at the number of people that have been waiting for this live stream, I think it's working. So we're going to be talking about keyword research, but it's not going to be a me live stream unless we start with what's in your cup and where are you from? Let me know in the chat below. I am here in frozen New York. It's 12 degrees Fahrenheit, feels like 9. This is not New York City weather. It really isn't. So I'm just going to stay here in the studio where it's nice and warm and talk to you. And I'm drinking this new peach tea that I found. It's herbal peach with ginger and something else, and it's really good. So that's what I have in my cup. What's in your cup? Let me know in the chat. I'm looking at the chat right now. If I can find my mouse, I think that's becoming normal. I should get a shirt. Where's my mouse? Lost my mouse again. Oh, I found my mouse. Let's see what's in the chat. Water in New York City. So another frozen person like me. Hello, Steven. Lisa is in Wales. Coffee in Virginia. I see, 4 degrees Celsius here. Okay, well, that's nice. Hi from Greece. Hello, Greece. You're really far. Thank you for staying up late. Poland. Not drinking anything. That's also acceptable. Iced coffee with cold foam in New Jersey. We're in New Jersey. I love New Jersey. I'm right across the river from you. Romania, Cambodia. We're looking good today. We're looking good today. So I have this interesting concept. Initially, I was thinking, I'm going to show you how I do keyword research because that's the one thing that everyone asks me, where do I start? And it's the same for big apps and small apps and games and brand new apps and apps with a ton of money for ads and a bunch and apps with no money for ads. But the process is pretty much the same. So I figured I'm going to show you how I do it. But then someone on my team suggested, what if we take keywords and apps from the audience and show you how I do it for your apps? So I think that's the best way to do it. You know how much I like teaching and learning hands-on. So we're going to do that. Before, I'm going to show you the tools we're going to be working with today and how I'm going to approach this very quickly. And then we're going to jump into talking about doing real keyword research live in front of the camera. I'm sure it will work well. So let me take you to my computer. And on my computer, we have what is known as Keyword Inspector, or my favorite tool, really. And in Keyword Inspector, the whole goal is to get data from the App Store, from Google Play for any keyword, but with overlay data to let you know if it makes sense or not. And that brings me to my very first point in how to do keyword research, the goal of keyword research. And so when we talk about keyword research, there isn't really a magic formula for do this, take this keyword, put it in your app's name, and boom. It's more along the lines of look through keywords that seem relevant, that make sense, that are used by competitors, and see if you can use them in your app. So that's what I'm going to show you today. And that's why the tools are so necessary for something like this, because it's very difficult to do this just by guessing. Now, I know you might say, I know my app, I know my users, they want this exact specific thing, and that might be true, but they might say it in a million different ways. And that's really where things get really interesting. So we're going to find those ways, and we're going to use those, and we're going to show the algorithm all the different ways that people can use our apps. That's really the goal of keyword research. Then takes those keywords, use them in your app's name, keyword list, and subtitle or the short description and the long description for Google Play, and boom. That's App Store optimization. Then rinse, repeat. That's usually how it works. So we're going to jump back into Keyword Inspector, and I'll show you a few more tools, and then I'll start taking ideas, keyword ideas, and intents from the audience. So if you have an idea for something that you think your users would love to find you by, drop it in the chat, and we'll look at that in just a little bit. I'm telling you to get a head start, which will probably mean I'm not going to be able to see anything in the chat, but we'll see how it goes. How it goes. One of those two. Okay, so Keyword Inspector, we talked about. This ends up being my favorite tool almost every single day, mostly because I use it to see if anyone cares about a keyword. So what we did with this, we also updated fairly recently. I don't know if you noticed, but and here are a bunch of keywords that I was looking for. Remote control with no E. So let's look for remote control, for example. And we can see here its popularity. We can see that we're actually updating its popularity in real time. We're updating its competitiveness in real time. And we got some stats. We know that the top 10 apps get about 2 million downloads, about $1 million in revenue. And their DPR is actually terrible, but not too terrible. It's a weird sort of average. So really what we can see, this is an interesting keyword. 40 is a pretty decent popularity. 94, very competitive. So we might want to find some other keywords, and I'll get into what that means in a little bit. And then we can look at the results and we can see some interesting data for them, like what's going on here, how many times they use it, and I'll explain why this is so important and why this app is using the Russian localization. In case you haven't seen me talk about this, you're going to get a big kick out of this. We can see some download estimate, some revenue estimate, some screenshots, some ratings. We can see screenshots somewhere else. And we can see when it was updated. So for me, this is super important when I make a decision of should I use this keyword or not. And that's the first tool I use. And then from there, I go into keyword inspector, into competitor keywords. So I'm going to compare these keywords, the organic keywords, and let's see what they have. And what this is doing, this is finding all of the keywords that our engine has seen for these 5 apps. It's bringing them in, and then we're going to see them all side by side, and we'll see which apps are getting the most views, which apps are getting the least views. We'll find keyword gaps, and we'll also find ways to leverage this information to tell, should we optimize for this keyword? This is going to take its time. Every time I do a live demo, something goes slow, so I'm not at all fazed by this. But the cool thing about this is you can do it for different countries, and you can do it for the 2 stores. You can also do it for the iPad, but if you're optimizing for iPad, you have a whole bunch of other challenges ahead of you. Oh, interesting. Okay, so we have some data, and we can quickly see that the Roku app is getting the most love. Oh, we're looking at about 6,000 keywords. That's why it's taking forever. And look, each one of these is thousands of keywords. That should already tell you something. Oh, we got some gaps in here. This is beautiful. I'll explain how to use this in just a little bit. I just want you to get a feel for what this is that we're looking at here. And let's go from here to ranked keywords, which is almost the same, and suggested keywords. We'll use those later. Keyword density, we can also look at a keyword list. We might look at, don't know if we'll have time. But back to keyword inspector, my favorite tool. We're going to look for, let's do remote control again. I want to show you just one more thing that I use, and that's related keywords. We use AI. AI, it's a keyword. We use AI to find all the relationships between keywords and apps in the App Store and all the things that are relevant. And we use that to give you a list of everything that's interesting. So if we look for anything remote control related, we can see everything that the engine is recommending that you look at because it's related. And from there, we can go and we can sort by popularity. Vizio TV remote is a 68. Really? You see, that I didn't expect. I guess a lot of people have Vizios and a lot of people don't like their remotes and they're looking for apps. Universal remote, that makes sense to me. Remote control for TV. I would think remote control for TV would rank higher than Vizio, but obviously that's not the case. That's why we need tools. So let me switch back so you can see me, and let's talk about how we're going to do this. I see a lot of different things in the chat. Chat is hopping. My chat is here. And we're going to, let's look at what we have here. So we have a bunch of things going on. Crossword puzzle. Oh, that's a good one. Holiday countdown, reaction time, posture, back pain. Oof, I can use that. My shoulders are killing me. My one neck is also killing me, but that's for later. Habit tracker, summoning stone, music and sound effects for tabletop games. That's going to be a rough one to find keywords for. We might look at this as an example in just a little bit. Goal tracker, budget manager, expense tracking. I've looked at a bunch of these different keywords over the years, specifically for keyword teardowns, which I have not done in a long time, but might do again in the future. And weather is also on this list. And they're all very, very interesting. So I'm going to try and pick one at random. Before I do that, I wanted to mention that we have a promotion right now. If you want to follow along and do this with me and have all the tools that I have check out this promo code that's only going to be available for today. The goal of this is just to make it easier for you to get on board and do some keyword research. This does not have any crazy requirements. It's for the optimize and grow plans, and it's 30% off for 3 months. You will be able to do a lot of App Store optimization in 3 months. That's why we're doing this. I'm also trying this QR code. I don't know if you're not on your phone, if you're on your desktop and you want to try this, because the video isn't clickable. Who knew? And I didn't want to put a link in the description because this is only for you who are watching this today. Only today. So that's it for this one. Let's get started. So let me pick one keyword of all of this. I mean, I'm not going to pick random because I don't think I can at this point. I've seen them all, but I'm very interested in trying really all of these. Holiday countdown just jumps to me, but I think that's going to be a little bit more niche. Let's start with something a little bit more competitive. Let's see. Weather maybe? Form builder. Okay, that's also going to be interesting. We might look at form builder in a little bit. Let's look at weather because I've looked at weather a million times. So let's jump back in and go into keyword inspector again, and let's type weather. So that's usually my starting point. You know what your app does, and so the best thing you can do, throw it into keyword inspector, and let's see if this keyword is a keyword we can aim for. So a sip of tea, and we'll continue. Okay, so weather, popularity of 72, that's pretty popular. Competitiveness of 100, that's very popular. Obviously, that's the most popular. Top 10 performance, estimated downloads 530. That's pretty good for 30 days, and this is US only because we're only looking at the US here. Estimated revenue, $5 million bucks. That's a lot of money. And the interesting thing is, it's not all coming from one app. The Weather Channel is big. It's going to be very difficult to compete with the Weather Channel for obvious reasons, branding reasons. But you also have quite a few other options that are also making money. Climb is making more than $1 million bucks. Not Boring Weather is making $22,000. That sounds great for an indie app. Amazing for an indie app, to be honest. Weather with a little tick at the end is also making some money. So this is a very, very competitive niche. None of these apps want you to succeed if you're not one of these apps. And that's a good starting point. So let's say you already went and you built a weather app, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about keyword research for current existing apps. Now, if you were thinking about a brand new app and you're like, I have some time on my hands, what should I do with my time? Should I build a weather app? This is really competitive, so I wouldn't necessarily say yes, unless you know the space really well and you have an idea for how to make it work. But other than that, I probably wouldn't. Not at this point. But that aside, let's go back in here. So starting with weather, if you are a brand new app, you're going to have a very challenging time making it in the weather category. And the reason is, one, you're competing with Apple. So Apple's over here having fun. And something interesting that I found about Apple is that most of the Apple apps used to be number one always without any regard to App Store optimization. And now they're almost always two. I'm not sure if this is something Apple is doing to make sure people feel like Apple isn't manipulating the charts, but I don't see any real way that this would happen otherwise. So if you're competing with an Apple app, going for the main keywords, so weather for the weather app, notes for the notes app, music for the music app, it's always going to be strange, and it's always going to be more competitive because you're not competing with 5 ranks, you're really competing over 4 ranks. Keep that in mind. I'm not saying don't do it, but I'm saying keep that in mind. It's pretty important. So let's go back in here. And one of the things we see immediately is that the Weather Channel is dominating this category because it's got a bunch of new ratings. And those ratings are not great. They're not great at all. So no one cares when it comes to the algorithm, when it comes to App Store optimization. Something I should stress, the actual value of your rating, whether it's a very low rating like a 1.47 or something higher like Apple's 4.85, it doesn't really matter for the algorithm. The algorithm wants to see that people care enough about your app to leave a rating. Good or bad is irrelevant. So the Weather Channel is winning. Now, if your app is brand new, unless you can get this number of ratings or more in a 30-day period in the US only, you're going to have a really rough time competing with the Weather Channel. Not only does the Weather Channel have momentum, the algorithm knows the Weather Channel. It also continues to get these new ratings, and it continues to keep its rank. And so that's why it's going to be very hard to take over number one for weather. And if we look at the rest, it's also going to be more challenging because 200 ratings, 300 ratings, 3,000 ratings. And you might be thinking, wait, what is going on here? 3,000 ratings. Why doesn't that beat 584? And that's, interestingly enough, how I started with keyword teardowns. That was the first thing that someone said to me, how is this possible? I said, well, let me explain. So a side note, a quick side note, because I have to. And I saw a comment in the chat, so you end up trying a lot of keywords manually. That should not be the case. But I'll show you how to determine if you should try something, even if it has a very low popularity. But back to this point, computer. So the reason that the Weather Channel, not the Weather Channel, the reason that, my radar is not doing as well as the Weather Channel, even though a bunch of these apps are duplicating, it's because the duplication here, and you know that the ultimate sin of ASO is keyword duplication. If you didn't know that, you should know that keyword duplication is the absolute most terrifying sin of App Store optimization. It just wastes your keywords. So weather is repeated here, and I talked about this in my keyword teardown of the Weather Channel, but because it's repeated within the name, the value of it doesn't change. It just wastes characters, but it doesn't change. Whereas here, my radar repeats it in the keyword, in the subtitle, between the name and the subtitle. So it loses a ton of value by getting really erased from here. And that's what happens when you duplicate only the last instance is what the algorithm sees. So it doesn't even know that you have weather in the name. It knows that you have weather in the subtitle. That's a terrible mistake. If my radar takes it away from the subtitle, they will see a rank increase almost instantly. They've been around for a long time. They keep their app updated. They're ranking pretty high in the category. There's no reason why this app should be so low, and that's because of this duplication. And the duplication becomes worse as you have more ratings. So the more ratings you have, the more duplication will hurt you. That's just how the algorithm works. So what would I do in a case like this? I have a weather app. I can't necessarily compete over weather as a keyword. I need to find what we call long-tail keywords. And those are keywords that don't have a popularity score of, of 72. They have a popularity score that's much, much lower, maybe 20, maybe 25, maybe in that range. I wouldn't go less than 20 unless I absolutely had to, but that's as low as you want to go. And you find a bunch of those. And those are going to be keywords that have multiple words in them, most likely. And that means that you can target them where others aren't. That's really, really, really important. So that's really the key to long-tail keyword optimization and finding opportunities. I'm going to show you how I do that in a second, but let's just get clear on this subject. A keyword opportunity is a keyword that has a popularity that's somehow more than 20, but also a keyword where the top results don't have the keyword fully and properly in the app's name. And the reason that happens is because the algorithm tries to find keywords or tries to find apps for every possible keyword. That's its job, really. So if there aren't apps with the exact set of keywords, it will find keywords or apps. I keep confusing the two. It will find apps that are relevant enough. Those are great opportunities because if you come in and you use the keyword specifically, you will rank high very, very quickly and with very little performance needed, not many ratings, because the algorithm is looking for you technically. It can't find you, so it found something else. It's really still looking for you. If you tell it, hi, I'm here, it will take you. So let's go back here and let's start looking at how to do this for weather. So what I would do, and this is the easiest thing and the tool that I showed you before, and kind of a cheat, honestly, is I'm going to take the top 5 apps and I'm going to look at all the other keywords that they're ranking in. So let's take a look, and this is going to take some time. So I'm going to let that load. I imagine those are in many, many, many thousands of keywords, and we want to see all of them because we're going to filter them in just a little bit, and we're going to find all the keywords that make sense. So let me, in the process, answer a question from the chat, which I think is pretty important. So let's bring up the chat, and let's answer the question from John. I lost my mouse again. I'm definitely making a shirt. I lost my mouse. And speaking of shirts, before I answer this question, we did a raffle on the last live stream, and it was pretty awesome. I know some of the people that I talked to after the raffle said, oh, we missed the live stream. Can we still enter the raffle? And back then, the answer was no. It ended as soon as the live stream ended. So we're doing it again. I'm going to raffle off 3 shirts, not even 2. 3 shirts like this. This robot is made of Apple parts, all the Apple parts leading up to the iPad, all the little mice on the bottom, the camera, if you remember this, all of them. It's really a really cool shirt that we've been giving out at conferences for years, but I'm going to give 3 of those away. All I need from you is to drop in the chat if you're live, or in the comments if you're watching this after the live stream ends, your favorite app and why, and start with raffle, just so I know to look for that later, because I'm sure we're going to get a bunch. And we're going to let this run for a whole week. So until next Wednesday, if you're watching this live or not, drop your favorite app, tell me it's a raffle, and tell me why, and you have a chance to win a shirt like this. We'll send it anywhere in the world, so wherever you're from, we'll probably get to you. Okay, back to what I was saying before. So, let's see. So John is asking, and I think this is a very valid question about DPR that I get all the time. Do absolute numbers or DPR win out if I have 100 downloads a day and 10 ratings a day? I have a DPR of 10. My competitor gets 2,000 downloads and 50 ratings per day for 40 DPR. Who wins? The easy answer is the absolute number always wins. The absolute number always wins because that's what the algorithm sees. DPR is a metric that I invented to help me understand if I can get to a specific position, or rather, how many downloads do I need to get to a specific position? A lot of people think that if you get more downloads, you're going to get a better rank, and that's false. But if you get more downloads, you stand the chance of getting more ratings, and that will give you a better rank. So DPR is a metric that I created in order to show me and show people that I've helped in the past, and show all of our members, of course, how many downloads how many downloads are necessary to get above a specific competitor. So in this case, DPR of 10 versus DPR 40 means that you will get more ratings 4 times as fast. So you can get to the same point with fewer downloads. You need 4 times less downloads in order to get to the same number of total ratings, which means you can outpace the competition 4x if you were to put money either towards more ASO through Longtail keywords, or through Apple search ads, or through something else. So when you think about it, that's really why DPR exists, to show you how much faster or slower you can move. It's a measure of how optimized your app is versus the competition. So hopefully that makes sense. And let's go back to my screen, and we'll see if we have anything else going on. Oh, we have a lot of keywords. Oh, interesting. Okay, we have quite a few keywords. So about 5,000 keywords for us to choose from. Let me bring you back to what I was saying before. So we're on weather, and we're trying to find keywords that are used by our competitors, may be an opportunity, but have a much lower popularity and probably competitiveness, so we can use them for our app, because we can't necessarily compete over weather. It's very competitive right now. I'm going off of the assumption that we're not getting hundreds or thousands of ratings. Otherwise, I would have seen it in Inspector. So we see the common ones: Snapchat, Facebook, TikTok. And the reason these are here is because Apple has this little quirk where when you look for an app by name, it will rank other apps that are number 1 in their category. And that's what we're seeing here. So we're going to ignore this, and we're going to continue and look for, I want to say, a popularity that is medium. I think medium is a good popularity, a good starting point for that. And we're going to then look for all the apps that are ranked 1 to 10. So we need to have at least one of these apps ranked 1 to 10 for it to matter for this particular research that we're doing here. And continue from that. Oh, there's another good question in the chat that I have to answer while this is loading. So where's my chat? Andrea is asking, there are services that make you buy ratings and installs. Do they get penalized from Apple's algorithms too if an app is not showing other users like these apps? Why is that? So we'll start with the first question. Should you buy ratings? Or if in case that is the question. And the answer is absolutely no. Terrifyingly no. Don't do that. I know someone will go on LinkedIn and will tell me I'm wrong because that happens every time I say this. But at the same time, I have heard from people who have gotten either banned or removed from the App Store, some more permanently than others, for buying ratings. So don't do that. It doesn't mean that Apple will always find out. It doesn't mean that Google will always find out. But if they do, you're toast. So you really don't want to risk that unless your whole strategy is let's build little apps and try to do something. I believe in building things that will be sustainable, so I say don't do it. But the way they work is they change accounts very rapidly. So they make many Apple accounts, and they train those Apple accounts by downloading apps and leaving reviews for free on seemingly random apps. So if on your app you came across a review that really makes absolutely no sense, it doesn't talk about the functionality, it doesn't feel like one of your users, it just feels weird. It doesn't feel fake, it just feels weird. That's most likely what's happening. Someone is trying to build up a reputation for an account. That happens to the Appfigures app all the time. I'm not sure why. But if you want, you can go in and you can tell Apple and Google, you can flag those reviews, and that helps a little bit. It doesn't always, but then what would happen is Apple will eventually catch up, and in most cases it does, and then it will terminate that account, and it will delete all the ratings that are associated with that account. So in the moment, it might give you a boost if you buy those, but ultimately it could lead to getting kicked out of the App Store. They definitely get penalized eventually, so I would not do that. I don't think it's worth the risk of getting kicked out of the App Store or Google Play. Google is even more mean about this. Apple will kick you out and send you an email. Google will ban you for life. And they can ban you in ways that will stop you from even opening more developer accounts. So I would recommend not doing that. Okay. And there are some requests. There are some requests for more AI stuff. Fun fact about AI, we're about to drop a big AI report on the entire industry covering the last 2 years, looking at revenue, at different segments, and we did our own segment, so we looked really closely. That's happening hopefully next week, so keep an eye on your inbox. Okay, let's go back to my computer and see what's going on here. We don't need the chat. And we'll go into, okay, so what we're looking at here is keywords that have a popularity that is between 29 and 50 or 60, something like that. And what we're trying to find now is we're trying to find keywords where maybe one app is ranking really well, but all the other apps are not, or maybe all the other apps are not ranking really well. And that's going to give us an understanding of what we can target. So, of course, when I do it live, it's a little bit slower than usual, which is enough time for me to drink tea and answer more questions from the chat. So, more questions from the chat. Oh, okay. I have a good one on here, and I will show how to do this for this good one. What should you do if your app is the only one of its kind in the whole store, but the main keywords for what it does are not popular? Where should you start? So many years ago, I was looking at an app for salsa dancing, and that app was at that point fairly unique, but all the keywords very low popularity, mostly because when there aren't a lot of apps, there isn't a lot of search for it. And that was the main challenge. So what you would do is do what we're doing now, but you got to do it at scale, meaning you have to find all of the long tail keywords, and you have to optimize for as many of them as possible. And there is a way to do that using localizations. There's a little trick, a little strategy that you can use, because when you reverse the ranks algorithm, when I reverse the ranks algorithm, I discovered that Apple will index, meaning will read your name in 10 different localizations. 10 different localization. And what that means is that you have your 100 characters for the keyword list, your 30 and 30 characters for the name and the subtitle across 10 different localizations. And if you're not localizing for them already, you can use English in those. And when you use English in those, Apple will read it. This does not work for Google, unfortunately, but there are many other ways to help Google with more keywords through the long description. And so you still have some opportunities across both sides of, or both platforms, I should say. So if you have an app that is either very unique, very distinct, very niche, and most of those apps are not going to have 1 mega keyword in most cases, because if there is 1 mega keyword, there will be more competitors. So as long as you have something like that, what you really have to do is you have to focus on finding all the different ways that people are talking or looking for that app. It doesn't mean that you will be able to find many, many downloads that way. If there isn't interest in the store, there isn't interest, and then your go-to should be advertising outside of the App Store, but that's a whole different live stream. Instead, I would look for all of the keywords, and I would do the same thing with Apple Search Ads if the price made sense. And the process for doing this for Apple Search Ads is actually identical, just with a tool that's focused on Apple Search Ads, which we also have called Search Ad Insights. Works exactly the same way, and I would use it exactly the same way. So let's go back and see what our keywords are showing us. So a bunch of interesting stuff. Having Apple on this is just kind of cheating, so we'll leave it in there for now just to have an idea of how competitive it is. But really what we're looking for is we're looking for keywords with a popularity that may not be very high. So for example, forecast seems to not be as popular, and none of these apps actually have forecast in their name, if you remember. And let's look at that again. I'm going to open that in a new tab just so we have both open, and we're going to look for weather. These 5 apps do not have forecast in their name. There's no forecast here, no forecast here. Yes, forecast here, so that's something. And yes, forecast here. These 2 are just copying and pasting. But that's really all the competition you have. So let's look for weather forecast. There we go. It's popular enough that these apps are competing over it, but it's also not popular enough that you have as much. I guess the competitiveness is 100, and that's because the weather app, or the weather channel, is still here. They're using it in the keyword list, which still is relevant in 2025. The keyword list has gone from not being relevant to being amazingly relevant, to being terrible, to being completely useless, to being amazingly, amazingly useful, to being what it is now, which is fairly useful. So make sure that you're using your keyword list on the App Store. Now, everything I'm saying, I might have the App Store tab selected, but the same thing goes for Google Play. Google Play will work the exact same way within Keyword Inspector. Interesting that it's a little bit less competitive on Google Play. And in Google Play, we do not have some of the things that we have for Apple, so we can't use the localization tip, but it does matter if the keyword is used in the description, and so the columns changed a little bit. The use in the name is important. The use in the description is important. The use in the short description is also important, but we didn't put it here because the description has a lot more flexibility when you look at this. And wow, look at this, 17,000 ratings. What a stark difference. So on Google Play, you're going to have a much harder time if all you're doing is trying to compete on keywords. And that's another important thing. The way the algorithm works is it first looks for apps that are relevant. And for your app to be considered relevant, it has to have keywords in the right places. It has to have the keyword either in the name or the subtitle or the keyword list, or a combination of all of them if it's a multi-word keyword. The main challenge then is for the algorithm. I'm thinking strictly from, I'm an algorithm. How do I show a user the most relevant app? So I have all these apps. It could be 1,000. Let's see how many results we have here. We have 249 results in this case, and results on Google Play are capped. Results on the App Store are less capped. 6,300 keywords, 6,000 apps the algorithm determined were somewhat relevant when looking for weather forecast. So now it's got 6,000 apps. What does it do? And a bunch of us here are developers. How would you do it? You'd need to rank it somehow, right? So you can rank it by downloads, but you can influence downloads with ads. Not that good, right? Because the same app would be number one all the time for all the keywords. So what you have to do is you have to find something that users would use as a proxy for I care about this, that is harder to manipulate, and that's where ratings come in. But that's not the only thing, because that can also be manipulated. So what the algorithm does is it looks for the keyword in specific places. Apple has its way, Google has its way. Ultimately, at the core, they're fairly similar. But the idea is that when you tell the algorithm through its most important metadata pieces, the name, the subtitle, or short description, long description, or keyword list, when you tell it what your intention is, what the intent of the app is, then it takes that into consideration. Weight starts from left to right. So if in English speaking, in left to right speaking languages, writing languages, I say a lot of things today. Don't quote me. But the left to right, that is true. So you want to have your keywords from left to right really as important as possible on the left, and as we go to the right, and as we edge into the subtitle and later the keyword list or the short description in the case of Google, less and less important. So in a case like weather forecast, you can have weather in the name and you can have forecast in the subtitle, and you will still be able to rank if you have a lot of momentum. And this app has been around for a long time. It's got a good store rank, which is a category rank. The algorithm really likes it, and that's why it's very difficult to compete with it. Weather forecast here, however, only 6 new ratings. You're not seeing my screen, so I'm pointing at it, but 6 new ratings, and weather forecast gets to become number 3 in this. And that's, again, because it uses the keywords properly. So when you do App Store optimization, it's not necessarily just looking at the numbers. I wish it was that easy. And people have asked me for many years, can you please make a tool that just tells me what keywords to use? And it gets very, very challenging at that point, because you're looking at a combination of things. So when you do your keyword research using the tools and using other things, it's really important to look at the placement of keywords within the name, subtitle, and also look at the number of new ratings and also compare that. So is this an opportunity? Absolutely. There's an app here with 6 ratings. That's number 3 for a 29 popularity keyword. That's amazing. And we can see this app is getting about 1,000 new downloads a month from the App Store in the US. So something good is happening. Now, if it was more popular, or if the developer spent more time with optimization, that 6 could easily become more. I mean, the DPR for it is 240, so it takes 240 downloads to get a single rating. Can you visualize 240 people in a room? That's a massive room. So something is not right. Maybe the app is not asking for a rating. Maybe the app is doing something that isn't useful. And so that's what I would do. And if we look at other apps in this result set, wow, like, why is no one optimizing here? 318, 323, 49. Okay, Climb is doing well, and Climb also is getting here, and Climb does not have the keyword anywhere. So it's very possible that in its keyword list, it might have forecast, but it might not be optimized enough. Maybe it's all the way at the end, or maybe it's split up in some weird way. And so a little bit of optimization for Climb would help it drastically in this case, considering its number of ratings. It's a shame. It should be so easy. Oh, interesting. It appears in Russian. That's where it's coming from. I will look at this. Let's look at this in Russian. I'm curious to see what it does. So I don't know if you know this, but you can. I'm looking at my screen and thinking you can see it too. So Climb does not have forecast in its obvious metadata, but it's got a pretty nice DPR. And so what we want to see is, and here it says that it's using the keyword in Russian in its visible metadata, meaning the name or the subtitle. So I want to see what that looks like, and let's see if we can. If you click on it, I don't know if you knew this, but you can see all of the data for this specific app. So I'm going to change its metadata into Russian. Interesting. Weather radar live. How is that different from English? Where's English? Oh, weather radar live. Interesting. Okay, we don't show the subtitle, so we can't see that, but this is interesting. So What I'm saying here is if you have a weather app, forecast is a keyword you want to look at. You still have these other competitors that are pretty aggressively targeting it, but not aggressive enough, and that's why at number 3, we have weather forecast, which used the keywords as appropriately as possible, and did not have any duplication. That's how it made it to number 3 with 6 ratings. So if I'm trying to optimize for my weather app, I would use weather forecast. And weather forecast likely has even more keywords that I can learn from. So what I would do is I would then take everything with the weather forecast and throw it again into compare organic keywords. And that will give me a better understanding of now what can I do to dig into weather forecast and continue from there. So this is the iterative process that I would go through, and we have quite a bit of data here. So 600 keywords from weather forecast and ORadar, AccuWeather with 1600, WeatherBug 1400. So now what I can do, oh wow, this is an interesting one. Now what I can do is I can look through all of these. Let's sort them by popularity. And let's do what we did before. So medium popularity, 20 to 59, rank high. And that should give us a smaller list, but an easier to process list. And after this, I will take some other keywords from the chat because that was my intent. And I didn't realize what time it was. Okay, so now we have a whole bunch of keywords, so we can sort them I would sort them by popularity upside down. So I want the lower popularities on top because those are probably the ones that I'm going to reach with my app. And so now we have a local weather forecast. It's a 20 popularity, but none of these apps are actually doing really well in it. And I'm kind of curious to see why. Oh, it's forecast spelt incorrectly. That's interesting. I would not necessarily recommend targeting misspelled keywords, but I think it's still important. Unless I don't really know how to spell forecast, and that's always possible. No, I do know how to spell forecast. Okay. Wow, that's amazing. So the misspelled keyword is a popularity of 20, and then the correctly spelled keyword is a popularity of 5. That's weird. I don't see that very often. Maybe try this in your keyword list. But that's also another one of these things where a lot of this will come from trial and error. It shouldn't all come from trial and error, but trial and error is something that I would use here for forecast. If forecast without the E is more popular than with the E, I would take that and I would throw that in my keyword list, probably towards the beginning middle, just so I give it a fair chance. And if it works, it works. Now, the way I would do this is using the localization tip that I share in pretty much every live stream at this point, and it's one of the most useful things that you can do. I have a guide on this. I will link to it below later so you can take it and you can see how to do it. But the idea is you put English words in non-English localizations. There are 10 that are supported. Russian is one of them. Chinese is one of them. I believe French is also one of them. There are a whole bunch. And when you do that, the algorithm will read it as if it was the English localization. So I would use that to test something like the misspelling of forecast. I wouldn't put that in any of my visible metadata because I think if people see that, they think I don't know how to spell, and I don't really want that. That seems unprofessional. But other than that, that's what I would do. So, okay, let's take a look again at the chat and see what people are asking for. Let's see. Oh, I have to answer this, which I have already. A question from the chat: is repetition of keywords in the keyword list and the title subtitle also a bad thing? Yes. Yes, it is. Do not repeat keywords, not between the name, subtitle, or keyword list. It's horrible, does not help, wastes everything. You get penalized for it too. So just terrible, terrible, terrible. Okay. Let's see. Ooh, interesting. AI wingman. There was another AI one in the chat that I wanted to touch on because AI is super hot, and I imagine many of you are trying to get some visibility for AI. Where is AI? The ChatGPT for coding. I think targeting ChatGPT is going to be challenging because it's an actual trademark at this point, or something that someone can fight you over, and you don't really want to do that. Where is the AI? There's so many items in the chat. Let's see. AI. I saw AI something. Calorie tracking with AI. Okay, let's look at calorie tracking with AI because that's, I think, an amazing idea that may or may not work. But let's see. So let's look at calorie tracking AI. And it looks like we're getting this from the App Store in real time. So this might take an extra second. I'm going to use my, oh no, we got it. Okay, so calorie tracking AI, popularity is still loading. Who's at the top? Lose It, Calorie Counter, probably has AI in the subtitle, lots of keywords. AI, Calorie Tracker, doesn't have tracking, and the algorithm doesn't know that tracking and tracker are the same thing. You would think it would, but it doesn't. Edo, AI Calorie Counter. Okay, interesting. MyFitnessPal, of course. Fastic AI, Calorie Counter, Hit Meal, Calorie. So we know from just looking at this that a bunch of these apps have AI in the keyword list, especially the ones that don't have it in the visible metadata, like what I'm seeing here for MyFitnessPal. But 18,000 ratings and the keyword and the subtitle and the keyword list becomes really, really, really useful. Same for all the other apps that probably don't have it in the visible metadata, like Lose It, which is a great opportunity. If we were to target calorie tracking or calorie tracking AI, we would probably be able to rank up here with very few new ratings, like what Fastic is doing. 70 ratings, and it's able to rank in here. And so that is what we're aiming for. We're aiming for keywords that might have a low popularity, and it's looking real hard over here. It's looking directly from Apple right now in this case. So Apple tends to be slow at times. But when we see the popularity here, I bet you it's not going to be super high, but it's not going to be super low. Somewhere in the 20 to 40 range would be my guess, mostly because this is a pretty popular kind of category, but none of these apps are saying tracking. Specifically, they all say tracker. So while we wait for this, no, that's not what I wanted. Inspector Gadget would be fun here, but not for right now. And we're going to do, what was I going to go for? Calorie, AI Calorie Tracker. Because it seems like Calorie Tracker might be a little bit better. And here we have a 38. AI Calorie Tracker is number one because it really matches almost everything that's going on here. The only reason we didn't highlight it in yellow is because of the dash. The algorithm doesn't exactly see the dash, so it's perfect. FoodScan is also making its way up. So this is a keyword opportunity. It's not as much as a keyword opportunity right now because the top 3 results are all targeting it, but they realize this. So if you look at what's happening here is AI calorie tracking, AI calorie tracker, AI calorie tracker, except this one only has 77 new ratings. So the algorithm has to give it the rank. It doesn't want to because it doesn't think that it's popular enough. And 77 might be okay, but 2. Look at that. 2 5-star ratings. So friends and family have brought this app to the number 3. And that's again, and this is an amazing opportunity because it's a high popularity keyword. People are looking for this. Competitiveness is very high, is very low, fairly low, not very low. Anything below a 90 in my mind is low. And we're looking at more than 500,000 downloads, 11 million bucks. So there are opportunities on the App Store, and this is one of them. I mean, the best DPR here is 21. You know that you can beat that. The average is 100. This is a great keyword. If you're making a calorie tracker, please use this keyword. I'm not even joking. Take this keyword, go optimize for it right now. This is a good one. And if you're not making one, you should make this app. I've been looking for an app that can track calories without me typing things into it and putting stuff on scale or scanning barcodes because I don't want to do any of that. And I don't really care for the details. I care for high-level numbers, and I've not been able to find a good one. They're all kind of like, meh. And I get it. It's not an easy thing to do. I actually tried building it myself. But if I will find one, I will definitely use it. So that's that. Now, a reminder, raffle, if you want a chance of getting the shirt, please put raffle, your favorite app, NY, in the chat or in the comments if you're not watching this live later, because I know that's going to happen. And I believe I was just told by my team that the winners from the last stream, not all of them reached out to us. So if you won or if we picked you in the last one, and I don't have the names here, but if we picked you in the last one, you were supposed to see it in a comment because we mentioned you in a comment on the video. If you saw that, make sure to reach out to us so we can get you your shirt and make sure that we know which size you are. Also, and I always forget to do this, but if you like what I'm doing so far, give the video a like. Not the little heart button at the bottom of the chat, because that does nothing. I'm talking about the actual thumbs up from below the chat. Let's see. Oh, we got a lot of viewers. We should be getting a lot of likes. Come on, let's see those likes. We have a few more minutes. Also, my team has mentioned the names of the winners. Let's see who won. Who won? One of my many screens here. Dean H. If Dean H is here, and according to my team, Dean H is on this live stream, please get in touch with us and we will get you your shirt because you won it fair and square. I mean, you got picked at random, so won it fair and square. Okay, let's continue. So let's take one more. We have about 5-6 minutes, and either that or I should take questions. So what do you think? Another more research or questions? Maybe questions about research. Let's do questions. Drop me a question in the chat and let's see what I can answer in the time that we have left. Nathan likes AI Calorie Tracker because it's a good opportunity. Good job. Summoning Stone. If you put your app as your favorite app, that's perfectly valid. I learned a long time ago that you have to promote yourself. So promote yourself. This is the place to do it. Don't go crazy. Like, be nice about it. Okay, so Sunny is asking, and let's put questions on the screen again. Hi, Earl. Hello, Sunny. How would a new app compete in the trip planner category? Are there long tail keywords that would be high value to target? Thank you. You're welcome. So trip planner is kind of exactly as everything else. I've looked at trip planner again for keyword teardowns in the past, and it may not have as many obvious long tail keywords, but once you start thinking about what kind of trips people are planning, and you can use the competitor tools in order to see what other apps are targeting, you will see a bunch of opportunities. So people are looking for things that are really specific. When you think long tail, think specific. So what is the most specific thing you can think about a trip? You can think about how you're planning this trip. You can think about the length, the duration of the trip, the distance of the trip, the destination of the trip. You can think about the type of trip, and that gives you a ton of different keywords to go after using the exact same process that we looked at here. Start with Keyword Inspector and go from there to look into competitors. And then as you zoom in on opportunities, look through the apps in those particular opportunity and the results for those particular keywords. And that's how you would be able to find way, way, way more long tail keywords than any other way that I can think of. Okay. Let's see. David is saying, it looks like Appfigures doesn't count Chinese localizations for the US. It doesn't? It should. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't, but we'll look into it. If you can send me a message later or show me the keyword that you looked for and the app that you found that didn't work, I will make sure that my team looks into it. Let's see. Leonora is asking, what's the influence of app categories on keyword rankings? What are the differences between Google Play and the App Store? So it gets very hairy because for most of the intent-based keywords, meaning someone comes into the App Store, Google Play, and looks for something to accomplish something, like a trip planner, for example, or a weather forecast, or an AI calorie tracker. In most of those cases, the category rank doesn't really impact the actual rankings. And that's because there are many other signals for the algorithm to do that, and the rank in the category is mainly pushed by downloads. Again, we talked about that as being something that people can game. So it doesn't really use that unless it absolutely needs to. And it absolutely needs to in cases where it's ranking keywords not based on intent, and that means mostly brand names. So when you rank an app for a brand name, because, and if you listen to me, you wouldn't do this, you wouldn't use a competitor name in your app, and you shouldn't, and it's not the kind of thing you want to do. what is the algorithm going to do? It doesn't really have many options, right? Because the keywords are not in the name. So if you look for Snapchat, there isn't a second app, or there isn't a third Snapchat or a fourth Snapchat. Now, on Google Play, it's a little bit different because there are clones and there are apps that try to manipulate it. But even with that, there aren't that many. So what you end up with is a result set that has one exact result. And even though that's what users want, that's not what the algorithm needs to do. Its job is to find many results and many alternatives in case you don't like number one. And so what it does at that point is it looks at category rankings. And there are a few different ways to do it. None of them are easy to use. None of them are things that you should be aiming for, in my opinion. I don't think that's valuable and you should spend your time on it. But that's usually how it works. And that's kind of the same across both stores. Google does it a little bit differently, the way they look at category ranks. Apple does it specifically for the branded keywords. But again, not something I would recommend using. Catherine is asking, do you have a resource on how to format the description in the store? It's really hard with no formatting allowed. So in general, for App Store optimization specifically, the description is meaningless. And so you can do whatever you want. You can add as many breaks as you want. You can add as many stars as you want. For people who might read it, which I think happens some of the time, if you just break it up in chunks that are easy to read, that would probably be enough. In most cases, people don't read descriptions, and when they do, they're looking for something specific. Whatever it is that your app does, highlight it. On Google Play, that is not at all true. On Google Play, it's incredibly important. Not the formatting part, that doesn't really get taken into consideration, but specifically the way that you phrase them. I don't have a guide yet, and I've been promising to write one for a very long time, and I will write one very, very soon. But formatting on Google Play is kind of iffy. They take all the ordered lists and they replace them with unordered lists for some weird reason, and they do all these weird things. We handle all of that automatically inside of our description optimization, which I almost clicked on earlier. But so if you want to see how your app looks without having to go through an Android device, you can load it up in that tool and you'll see it, and you'll see how other apps do it. Or you can use our tool and then export from it and bring that into Google Play. Okay, one last one. I think we have time for one last one. Bogdan is asking, does plural versus singular matter? Example, if an app has podcast app in the title and podcasts player in the subtitle, is that good or bad? That's bad. It's bad, well, for 1.5 reasons. So podcast and podcasts is seen as by the algorithm, especially in English, as the same word. It knows the difference. It doesn't know a lot of things. It knows very little when it comes to thinking outside of the just going character by character. And that's the one thing that it does know. So you don't necessarily need it. No, you absolutely don't need it, but you necessarily need to not use it if you don't want to commit the absolute sin of ASO. Now, in general, I wouldn't repeat it because even as a human, when I read something, especially a word like podcast, and I read it twice, my brain doesn't like it. So we can talk about that separately because I think that's more opinion than anything else. But ultimately, from an ASO standpoint, it's really, really not good to do. Now, if you wanted to try it and you wanted it to have more oomph, because podcast app as one word and then another, and then having player in the subtitle would have less weight when it comes to the algorithm, you can try a different localization. So in English, do podcast app, and in Russian, do podcast player, for example, and give that a try and see if you rank as well. Okay, a question I get asked all the time on pretty much every possible channel. Can someone pay me to do their ASO? Not at the moment. I did that for a little bit. I did it for a lot of it, actually, with some companies, and that was a lot of fun, but it takes a ton of time, and I just didn't have the time to do it. And so I stopped. And for now, I have not started doing this again, but I might in the future. If that's something you would want me to do, I would love to hear from you, just so I know what sort of demand there is for something like this. I do have a team, so I'm sure we can find a way to make this happen, or turn this into a course, or turn this into a class, or turn this into something that will really help you and benefit you. So yeah, let me know what you think. I'm always open for feedback. This is not a promise that I will do it, though. I may or may not do it in the future. Maybe. We'll see. Okay. What else? I think that's pretty much all the time we have. So I hope you enjoyed this live stream. I hope you learned something from it. I saw some comments that said that it was amazing. Thank you. If you haven't yet, please give the video a like. And if you haven't subscribed, you definitely should, because I do this almost every other week at this point, and I want to do more. But I really want to hear from you what kind of content you want from me. So drop something in the comments or in the chat and let me know what kind of things you want me to show you. I know a lot of people wanted TikTok ads, and with TikTok or TikTok in general, TikTok being TikTok right now, I don't know if that's still going to be interesting. Probably. Who knows? But whatever you want, please let me know in the chat. Don't forget about the raffle. And that's all I have for you today. If you have any other questions beyond that, drop them in the comments after the stream is done. I will be here to answer them. And that's all I have for you. I will put up the promotion one last time in case you missed it. And this is going to expire in a few hours, so later today in New York time, so Eastern time zone, probably midnight. If you want it, give it a go. And if you have any other questions, you know where to find me online. That's all I have for you today, and I'm going to see you in the next one.